For him to be betrayed, it needs to be people that Charlie Kirk trusts. And when you look at the timeline that was laid out in the video I'm about to show you, that is meant to indicate that people on the inside of T must have been involved. So I guess this is just going to be my new policies. Every time I finish a video, I am going to come to the very beginning and tell you what the most important part of this video is. And as usual, okay, at the very end of this video, the very end, okay, I go through a timeline that was created by people who believe that there is a large conspiracy around the Charlie Kirk assassination. And the timeline lays out a fact that I had never verified before. And I verified it in real time, literally 30 minutes into this video, and my ears just like blew out of my head. Because if that's true, it destroys the entire like official case, destroys it. Okay. And it gets, you'll see, I asked artificial intelligence, is this a true fact? And it says, yes, it is. Okay. Now we got a lot of other stuff to look at, which I'll outlay in a second because I already recorded that part. But this just happened, so definitely stick around to the end because I am very open to suggestions of how this could be true and simultaneously Tyler Robinson could have possibly done this. Maybe you guys can show me how the basis of this is not true, and that way I can go back to, not banging my head against the wall. Good show, though. A real good episode coming. All right, we got a big show for you guys today, and I worked my balls off on this video, and we're going to get into some very interesting things. Now, we're going to start off with a couple of the theories that are floating around. Now, I don't think anybody is on board with that. This is exactly what, what the FBI said is exactly what happened. Like I talked to somebody today that is so credible, like so much experience in federal law enforcement. And he told me that he thinks that there are serious problems with the FBI's case. So like, when I tell you like, this is not just my opinion, this is shared by the most credible people there possibly could be. That is the case. Okay. Now, so what I want to show you though, is the problems that I see with the case, the primary problem. I'm going to show you that right out of the gate. And then we're going to take a look at my least favorite, theories that I just look at and go, are you kidding? And I'm going to show you videos of those and why I think they're stupid. And then we're going to go into the gag order because there's a huge, a big uproar related to Candace Owens saying that she's going to violate the gag order. And there's some really important stuff to understand about the gag order, Candace's statement, the implication that she's making about who has betrayed Charlie, because I'm going to go through a timeline that was released yesterday that would implicate the same thing that she is implying, and that being that Charlie was betrayed by the people on the inside. All right, and listen, with the gag order thing, somebody's lying. Okay. Somebody's lying. However, I am not lying when I tell you that YoKratom.com is where I shop for $60 kilograms of all the different strains of kratom powder, YoKratom.com. So to be clear, with the timeline and the gag order and the things we're going to talk about, what we're actually discussing is the likelihood that this kid is going to get convicted, right? And then also, Candace Owens' involvement with, her media reach and like the gag order thing. You'll see there's like serious problems with what she said about the gag order and what the actual gag order is and what's being reported in the media. Like there's something really weird going on there. And then the timeline is going to also indicate other things. So like, I guess what I'm saying is in the comments, you tell me if you think this kid is going to get convicted or not when we look at it, because that's a lot of what we're going to be looking at. Now, real quick, I wanted to show you guys two separate things here, okay? So this one, right, like this is like there's so much stuff that comes out. I want to show you like the kinds of things that I look at. I'm like, okay, this is important that people see. This was from 3 weeks ago, and it's a super quick clip of Tyler Robinson as he is getting his diploma. Okay. And I mean, we can mute this. There's nothing like shocking here, except that the guy does not have a limp. He very simply just walks right across. Definitely doesn't have a limp, because people have been saying that like, oh, the guy, has some kind of leg issue. And that's why he's limping in the video. Okay. That's not true. Disproven right here. Now that would indicate that Tyler Robinson is the one who did this, right? Because he didn't have a limp and they show him limping onto the UVU campus, which should indicate that he's got a rifle down his pants, right? Well, here's the thing, dude. Okay. What do we actually have that connects Tyler Robinson to this case? Okay. You have digital messages, right? Now, to be clear, I think that Tyler Robinson is involved in this case, but I have no idea and certainly no way of proving that he did this alone, number one, that he's the one that took the shot, that the rifle itself is the murder weapon. You don't have any bullet fragments. We're going to get into all of that stuff later. But now let's just take a look at some like noise, right? Noise. A lot of people sent this video to me today. The point of this video is about the guy who is the security dude. Let me show you this.
And an expert on special weapons and how to fake events. He is head of...
like a special... like a specialty in weapons and how to fake events. Like where the fuck does it say that? You know? Okay, so like there, pure fear took over. I knew my brother Rick works for the private security firm that accompanies Charlie Kirk and Riley Gaines. These events, my mind started racing. Is he there? Is he okay? He picked up. He told me that Rick was there and it was bad, but he was physically unharmed. Okay, so that's like, you know, that stuff, right? And over here, you know, he's a retired police officer, 29 years. And his brother posts on Facebook about he works for a private security firm, Charlie Kirk, you know, and Riley Gaines. Okay, well, like, that's fine. What, like, that's, of course he does that, right? Of course he does that. So, like, how, like, he's a security guy. Why is he a suspect? Let's continue.
Military training in Guatemala and is contracted with the U.S. government. What are the odds that the guy that appears to shoot Charlie Kirk is also...
Again, I just like, this is one of my videos. This is one of my pet peeve videos right here. Okay. Because it is literally on camera. Okay. The idea that this dude is shooting Charlie Kirk in this clip is so fucking dumb that I literally die. Like, normally I kind of like soft pedal it a little bit. You know, I'm like, you know, I don't really see it there. Okay. But in this exact clip, I have seen two different theories. One is that this dude right here presses a fucking detonator. And the other is that this dude right here is shooting him with like a little tiny gun that's in his hand. And what's crazy is there's another angle of it. Okay. Like, just check this out, dude. Okay. There's another angle of it. He's adjusting his shirt. It's so obvious, dude. Watch this.
Texas with 29 years of experience who moved to Guatemala after retiring in 2019 for missionary and training work. He is a retired police officer from Irving, Texas, with 29 years of experience who moved to Guatemala after retiring for 29...
Okay, spoiler. Anyone who is going to be on the security detail of someone like Charlie Kirk is going to have a background like that. High-level military, different types of training. Those are the people who get those jobs. Like, they're going to be high-level guys. Do you think Joe Rogan has like 6 or 8 like Navy SEALs that protect him and are with him all the time? Like, those are exactly who protects these guys. If they get killed, that doesn't mean that these guys were involved in it because you could find a guy going like this on his shirt. Now, if you want to talk about his security guards, then we could talk about them jumping over the table and there's no blood on any of their hands. That's problematic. Like, that's a problem. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, I don't understand that. Like, none of them tried to do anything to work on him, you know? But anyway, we got too much other stuff to talk about today, so we're gonna move on. All right, so now let's move over to Candace Owens, the gag order, and the truth about what's actually going on there. So the beginning of this entire story comes when Candace Owens puts this up on X, right? Don't worry about the gag order in the Charlie Kirk case. I plan to violate it on the world's behalf. The things I've discovered this past week are enough to burn the house down. Yes, Charlie was betrayed by everyone. That's got 10 million views as of this moment, okay? This is a person that you cannot silence no matter what you do, okay? And what I mean is, like, you would have to like kick her off of all social media. People are going to find what Candace is saying and they're going to listen to her one way or the other, okay? Now, I have a clip of Candace that I want to show you guys later because again, as I referenced earlier, part of this is going to be what we know about the Candace theory, overarching timeline, all of that stuff, right? But the reason that people listen to her is because she's very compelling when she speaks. I'm not saying that I agree with everything that she has said, but I do think that she's a good actor that is trying to find out what really happened here. You know what I mean? Now, with that said, though, there are some things about this statement that are, a little wonky that we should, reference here. Okay. So when it comes to the gag order, right? Look at this. Okay. So this is just from Winnicky Law Offices, right? They say, I'm seeing commenters claim that the gag order in the Tyler Robinson case is very broad, covering thousands of people. What's clever about the order, however, is that it does that without actually doing that. Here is the actual gag order. This is from Mario Nawfal, very solid source of information, right? So he says a Utah judge has issued a gag order in the case of State versus Tyler Robinson, restricting lawyers from making public statements that could affect the trial. The order, filed in Utah's 4th District Court, bars attorneys from either side from releasing extrajudicial comments that could prejudice proceedings. Robinson faces charges of aggravated murder and other felonies. The case has drawn major attention after commenters vowed to defy the order, though it legally applies only to attorneys. Well, let me tell you what applies to every single one of you guys watching this right now. I am grateful for your support and your continued viewership. I love you guys. I really do. And again, what I always say is if you're going to watch my content, I deeply appreciate if you will just take 1 second, click subscribe, and like the video. Oh, one other thing you guys might not have noticed. I'm pretty sure if you look in the comments and start looking at accounts, I might have the highest population of pretty ladies in the comments of any channel in this space. So fellas, go interact. And thank you, ladies. Well, that's interesting because I want to show you guys something else before we look at the actual gag order. All right. So this is what I'm talking about here when you're like, oh, what's going on in the case? What's going on in general? You know, what are people supposed to think when you have conflicting stories all over the place? Okay. So this, okay, is in Fox 13 News, right? Voluminous evidence and a gag order that could impact thousands in the Robinson case. 4th District Court Judge Tony Graff had entered in the case, which could create problems. It forbids anyone associated with the case from speaking to the news media. Okay. Now, obviously, before I, move on to the next stuff, to act as though the amount of coverage that this case is getting on the internet or on television or whatever, that would not create problems for both I guess it's actually creating lovely scenario for the defense. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't see a lot of people who are covering this case extensively who are like, Tyler Robinson did it and he did it alone. He used a 30-06 and I believe it 100%. Okay. And this is the thing though, right? The state and the feds, they think they've got their guy and they do not want to introduce anything new that is going to disrupt their case. Now, in my opinion, their case is already fucked. Okay. Like their case is already exactly as I just described it 1 second ago, at least in part, if for no other reason, because of Kash Patel's, the post that he put on X, where after they had already charged Tyler Robinson, he's like, we're going to be looking into this. 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 I'll remind you what that looks like. So you guys remember this and keep in mind, this was after Tyler Robinson had been arrested and charged. Okay. He posted this publicly. We are meticulously investigating theories and questions, including the location where the shot was taken, the possibility of accomplices, the text message confession and related conversations, Discord chats, and the angle of the shot and bullet impact, how the weapon was transported, hand gestures observed as potential signals near Charlie at the time of his assassination, and visitors to the alleged shooter's residence in the hours and days leading up to September 10th, 2025, he said in a post on X. Okay. So first of all, I hope that that's true. And I find it extraordinarily hard to believe that if they really looked into all of that they came up with nothing. Like, so what were those kids who said that there was a bunch of shady characters with out-of-state license plates that were going there to their apartment who looked really like they had bad energy and they were there only for the 2 weeks leading up to this event? You're telling me that that was nothing? Like those guys were making that up? Because I watched their interview. They looked pretty credible. You know what I mean? So that was just like a random thing that those guys were coming up. The guy who's cheering, yay, USA, coincidence, And, but again, either way, regardless of whether anything comes out of it, what you're saying right here, after you've already charged the guy who you want to convict, is we are not really sure of what happened here, right? Like he said, we are investigating where the shot was taken. After you've already charged the guy and written up where you believe the shot was taken. Okay. That's going to be the same report that's used in the trial when they're trying to convict Tyler Robinson. Literally, I have no background. I've never gone to law school. I've never defended a criminal case, obviously. I've given advice to people, a lot of advice, actually, believe it or not, in cases like all kinds of cases. I've just people that I'm friends with, I come up with ideas and I just share it with them and they've always been receptive to that. But I feel pretty confident that I would shred this case just off of this. I would be because at the end of the day, you think that facts and evidence are what ends up convicting people, and you're wrong. Okay. A group of 12 people's opinion is what convicts people. This is all I do all day long. is share my opinion and try to, sway people to see it the way that I believe that it is. I mean, I'm not doing anything devious. I really do believe the things that I'm saying. But like in this case, like all I have to do is convince 12 jurors that the FBI who's telling you the story, they didn't even know. They weren't even confident in what they said, right? You're telling me that this is how many of you got, hey, Utah jury, how many of you are familiar with a 30-06 round? Have you ever shot a living thing with it? You guys go hunting. You ever shot something that has flesh about like yay wide? Do you think that something like that with a tiny little, like a relatively tiny spine or, scapula or whatever is going to stop a 30-06? You believe that? You pose it to them like that. And then you're like, you have a murder weapon and you have a suspect whose murder weapon that is. But you don't have any proof that that is the actual murder weapon because you have no ballistics matching the bullet to the gun. Okay? How would you possibly assume that this is the gun that was used just because you have a spent casing it in there? How hard would it be for someone to just put that rifle there? Okay, like I've seen the evidence that they have. I've seen the pictures of Tyler Robinson. I don't even think it looks like him. I don't think those pictures look like Tyler Robinson. I really don't. Okay, now I'm not saying necessarily, well, let me rephrase that. I don't think that they are definitive that they are Tyler Robinson. And I'm not saying that it is. I'm not even saying that he didn't do it. I'm definitely not saying that he didn't do it. Now, I'll pose a question to you guys that was actually brought up in a conversation that I had with Valhalla VFT yesterday. So I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with JD Delay and Valhalla VFT. So I actually spoke to both of them through text. I had a long conversation with Valhalla yesterday, and we talked about the case. Oh, speaking of which, we are thinking of doing a live fight companion for the Jake Paul Gervonta Davis fight on November 14th. So there would be myself, JD Delay, Valhalla for sure. The three of us are like 90% going to do it. And then we're trying to get Heavy Duty Country Dan to do it as well. He's looking at the dates. How many of you guys will watch that? Okay, you tell me in the description or in the comments if you guys will watch that. If we do a live fight companion, the fight's free on Netflix. It's not even pay-per-view, so you can put it on Netflix. You can listen to us bullshit all night, the four of us. So and maybe more. I don't know. It might be more, but the three of us are almost certainly going to do it. So anyway, but in the conversation with Valhalla, we were talking about the 30-06 round and how there's no bullet recovery, right? So I also spoke to someone else today. I'm not really sure if he would want me to quote him on this publicly, so I won't. But he has a extensive history in the top of federal law enforcement. And he's like, you sound like you're very well versed on the case. Do you know whether or not they matched the bullet fragments to the round itself or the casing itself that was inside of the rifle, the 30-06? And I was like, as far as I know, they have not. In the charging documents, there was nothing that connected. There's no mention of recovered round. The mention of the bullet fragments is actually from the medical report. And I've only heard of that through third hand anyway. But what I would do, okay, this is what I was thinking about today. What I would do is I would pull that bullet fragment. I would try to see if I could get a hold of the bullet fragment. You would think that would be evidence that someone would have. And I would go and match it to the bullet casing. So you have the bullet casing. You know what brand of bullet casing it is? And I would go get those two things tested because, I realize ammunition they're made out of the same metals. Not all of them are. But I bet you that there are unique properties in these rounds if they're different brands or whatnot, or maybe they're all the same. I don't really know. But that's what I would test for. I would find, exactly what brand and model round it was because you have the spent casing. And I would go take the bullet fragment and I would test it against the projectile that are on that type of round. Unless that's part of the prosecution's case and they have matched those, then maybe they don't match, Bottom line is it's going to be, there's a lot of problems for the prosecution in this case is my main point. Let's get back to the gag order though. Okay, so the court will rule that as those witnesses become known to each side, that the information is conveyed to abide by the order. Obviously, there are potentially many witnesses, and it's not the expectation that you would do that up front, but as they become known. Okay, so. And here you go. This is what they're referencing. So the case involving conservative political influencer Charlie Kirk has already generated a massive amount of media attention and even comments from President Trump, who viewed Kirk as a friend. In his own words, Judge Graff, who was sworn in just 56 days ago. I pledged to protect the constitutional rights of Robinson and the rights of the victim. That's interesting. They gave the biggest case in like the last 20 years to a judge who just got sworn in 56 days ago. Is that weird? Is that weird, you guys? I mean, I don't really know. I don't have a lot of experience with this, but you would think like in movies and television shows that I've seen where they're assigning judges, like they assign judges and there is someone who makes a decision and assigns it to specific judges. You would think that someone with extensive experience would get this case, not someone who's been doing it for less than 2 months. But again, I don't know, all these weird Google searches, who knows? Again, for the record though, if I have a gun to my head and I have to decide and I have to, make my beliefs known, I am going with left-wing radicals that did this. That is what I would bet on. Obviously, I'm open to other theories as we're going to discuss later on. But, I just want to make that clear. That's where I land on this thing in terms of what I believe happened. Okay. So now let's go back to the actual gag order and see if it matches. I am saying to try this case, right? With this hanging out there is going to be it's going to be a tall order, right? And as soon as you start adding in all of the entirety of the internet piling on, theory after theory after theory after theory after theory, okay? It's going to be really hard to get a conviction here, okay? And so, yeah, I mean, my point is I totally understand why they want a gag order, right? Like why the judge is willing to give him a gag order. But the question is okay, well, is the gag order on everyone or is the gag order on just the attorneys? Because we have two conflicting stories right there. Well, let's answer the question right now. Okay. So this is the pretrial publicity. This is the gag order actual document. I will make this a little smaller so you guys can read it along if you want to. Defendant Tyler James Robinson is charged with one count of aggravated murder and other felonies. This case is generated and is likely to continue to generate significant pretrial and trial publicity. That publicity can compromise defendant Tyler James Robinson's right to due process of law, as well as both parties' right to a fair and impartial jury. Pretrial publicity is of particular concern because it can taint the prospective jury pool. To protect the parties' fundamental rights, the court, on its own motion, issues the following protection order. Lawyers who have participated, who are now participating, or who will yet to participate in the investigation or litigation of this case in any way shall abide strictly by Rule 3.6 of the Utah Rules of Professional Conduct, prohibiting a lawyer from making, quote, an extrajudicial statement that the lawyer knows or reasonably should know will be disseminated by means of public communications and will have a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing an adjudicative proceeding in this matter. Okay, so that's lawyers. It's only for lawyers, okay? And then this is the rest of the entire thing. Lawyers who have participated, who are now participating, or who will yet to participate in the investigation or litigation of this case shall not intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly permit a witness, investigator, consultant, staff member, or other member of the prosecution or defense team to make extrajudicial statements which, if made by a lawyer, would violate 3.6. Wait, so that's already, yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. They did repeat that. That's still the same document. To that end, lawyers participating in the investigation or litigation of this case shall inform all witnesses, investigators, consultants, staff members, or other members of prosecution or defense teams about prohibitions contained in this order. Okay. The protection order applies to lawyers who are not participating in the investigation or litigation of this case, but who are associated with the Utah County Attorney's Office or associated with defense counsel's firm or firms. See Utah, yada, yada, yada. This order does not prohibit lawyers from making statements permitted by 3.6. See the Utah. Okay, so again, this gag order, unless there's a new one, does not apply to Candace Owens in any way. And I don't really know why she's doing this unless this is literally just genius marketing for her next episode. Okay. Like in this case, I am going to say pretty definitively here that that's exactly what she's doing. Okay. Now, do I have an issue with that? No, I don't at all. Okay. It's brilliant. I mean, look at this, dude. Okay. When you Google, okay, look, let's Google this together. Tyler Robinson gag order. Okay. All you get in the news is from recent, like, you know, Candace Owens vows to defy gag order. Everything else is from weeks ago. Or here we go. Candace Owens, like, you know what I mean? This is all stuff on Candace, that anything that's even moderately recent. So there is nothing new on the Tyler Robinson gag order. It's just Candace using the fact that there is a gag order to garner attention on her next episode, which has worked. Okay, I'm going to be honest. I'm chomping at the bit to see what she comes out with. Like, I want to see it, right? I really want to know, because again, you know, I think that I will probably do the timeline after this. So if I have already shown you the timeline, then disregard. But you know, but like right now, we're going to look at the timeline, which, you know, indicates that there is suspicion on other parties that are not Tyler Robinson or radical leftists, because what this timeline indicates is someone on the inside betrayed Charlie Kirk, because that is exactly what she said, right? Yes, Charlie was betrayed by everyone. Okay. Well, guess what? Left-wing radicals can't betray Charlie Kirk. Left-wing radicals hate Charlie Kirk. Okay. For him to be betrayed, it needs to be people that Charlie Kirk trusts. And when you look at the timeline that was laid out in the video I'm about to show you, that is meant to indicate that people on the inside of TPUSA must have been involved. I am certainly not signing off on that at all, because I don't, at least the people who I have seen speak, the guy Andrew, right? I know he put out the thing about the medical report that people are questioning, and the other guy that he was having the conversation with in that interview. Like, every instinct I have is that he's telling the truth. I don't see anything that kind of, like, you know, kind of twist that little part of me where I'm like, I don't believe him. It's the exact opposite. I think he's telling the truth. And honestly, if he's lying, I am going to question my ability to read that. And I'm also wildly impressed with his ability to boldface lie, because I believe him. But again, that is what's implicated in this timeline that we're going to look at in a second. All right. So this is Coach Colin, and Coach Colin, he essentially like put together this timeline based, I guess someone else put it together for him. And candidly, I'm actually very curious if this is accurate, because there are issues with what I've heard and what's in this timeline. Okay. And I'll tell you exactly what I mean. Okay. So check this out, right? So this is the 24-hour mystery. The Utah Valley University Turning Point event featured Charlie Kirk took place September 10th, 2025. And the first public announcement of that event came from UVU Review on September 9th at 4:30 Pacific Mountain Time, just 24 hours before showtime. Okay, I have no idea if that's true, but this is what's in this timeline that he's sharing, and you know, he's getting I can't verify that one way or the other. No prior press, posts, or social mentions from TPUSA about UVU in the weeks leading up. Every previous TPUSA tour stop in the past years was announced weeks and sometimes months in advance. Okay, now obviously, you know, the implication of that would be that, like, why would they suddenly throw that together? You know, when that has not been their traditional behavior. Okay. So the impossible timeline for a national level event, logistics like venue clearance, campus coordination, and security normally require long notice. Yet somehow a full production team, stage setup, media crew, and audience coordination appeared overnight. Raised the question, was this really spontaneous or deliberately kept quiet until the last moment? Okay. Now, again, why am I talking about this when I can't verify the information that's in it? I will explain that in a second. Okay. Because we're still talking about the case, right? So digital breadcrumbs. Independent researchers stating that started analyzing Google search anomalies that appeared days before the event. Search trends spiked for Tyler Robinson. UVU event schedule proved me wrong. Turning Point USA. Specific weapon and location details. And these were coming from Washington, D.C. and Tel Aviv. And they're also, you know, supposedly the searches are for the medical examiner, the hospital that he was brought to, and the head of the FBI in the in Utah, like the old one and the new one. Okay. So a viewer used AI to trace the entire history of Turning Point tour announcement. They found no other instance ever of an event being revealed the day before it happened. Every previous tour announcement came weeks early, allowing promo and logistics. The September 9th and 10th gap is an anomaly in their entire organizational record. Now that obviously is, you know, super sus if it's true, right? So the Florida to Utah connection prior to the Utah event, TPUSA hosted July 13th Florida debate between Dave Smith and Josh Hammer. That debate angered donors and insiders because it platformed controversial voices. After that moment, blips in Google search data begin showing up around July 20th, suggest that tensions around TPUSA and Charlie's public stance began weeks before the Utah stop. Okay, so obviously this timeline is that of people who believe that he was whacked out due to his his stance on Israel and, and Israel in general, right? So what we're going to do to wrap this entire video up is we're going to do this, all right? So I had not done this before, but we're going to do it together, okay? So we're going to go, was the TPUSA event at Utah Valley, September 10th, 2025, announced only 24 hours prior to the event, or was it announced much earlier publicly? Because listen, ChatGPT is always right, guys. Okay, it's thinking. What's it going to say? All right, so it needs to track down recent details. Was it announced just 24 hours ago or earlier? Dude, my ChatGPT has been acting weird lately, man. It's doing a lot of things that to me look like it's like delaying things on purpose. Like asking me a bunch of like qualifying questions before it just like gives me answers, you know? See what I'm saying? Look at this, dude. Like it's like for me, like if I ask it to like help me with that. Okay, here we go. The earliest. Wow. They verified it, dude. I did not anticipate that. TPUSA's event listing shows September 10th, Utah Valley stop, but the page itself doesn't display when it was first published, so it can't prove an earlier public announcement. It does, however, confirm the event details. Okay, well, so based on sources with clear timestamps, it appears the event was publicly announced about 24 hours in advance, not much earlier. Okay, is that normal or abnormal? Abnormal. Okay, what's normal? Okay, it's not typical for public events, but it is becoming more common for politically sensitive events where organizers want more control over turnout and security and less protest coordination. If you want, I can pull examples of other political campus events announced last minute as comparison. Huh. Well, I have a common sense question. If this event was only announced 24 hours before it happened, then how did these guys know that they could go there and pull it? Like, how did Tyler Robinson know to go there and pull it off if it was announced only 24 hours before in the UVU student paper? How is that possible? Okay, that is super suspicious, man. That is, honestly, I am at a loss. I don't really know what to do with that. That is, I can't believe that I've literally just filmed a 30-minute video and just discovered that at the very end, because that throws a wrench into everything if it's true. Okay. Now I just used AI to try to validate what was said, and it says that that's accurate. Okay. So again, if anybody knows that that's not accurate, please let me know, because, I don't know. I'm open to suggestions. How the fuck would Tyler Robinson know if it's only announced in the school's paper 24 hours before? How would Tyler Robinson have been planning this for 2 weeks? Okay, he said he'd been planning it for a couple weeks. Well, how would you have even known that if it wasn't announced until 24 hours before the event? Riddle me that.